this event is sponsored by Public Square. If you guys want to help win the culture war and support businesses that support our values, download the Public Square app. Check out businesses in your area. I really do mean it. We were driving back from dinner, and Luke is in the back of the car, and he goes, Kevin McCarthy was just removed. And I was like, no. Hold, wait. Like, I'm not saying, where are you seeing that? And he's like, no, it happened. And then we see the video that it's done. The first time in history, Matt has, it's a stake in the heart of the vampire. It's the corporate lobbyist. It's the machine. 82%, according to Gallup, in the latest poll, disapprove of what Congress does. And these members of Congress are just like, we'll keep doing what we're doing. Apparently that's working. It's working for them, but it's not for us, so. Amazing work, man.
Thank you.
I guess the question is, what next? I don't want to, also, we've got a bunch of other amazing individuals on the stage as well. And I also want to mention, we had James O'Keefe on the Culture War podcast this morning. That's right. And James was served a cease and desist within an hour of the show wrapping.
I get sued a lot.
So what next? How's it going, guys?
Yeah, who's going to be the next speaker?
What are we up against? What do we do?
First, let me just say the last time I was in a room with hundreds of people, they did not like me as much. So, it is good to be home in the great state of Florida. So I wish we didn't have to come to this. I wish we would have a budget, but there is a reason the actions in Washington, D.C. are hollowing out the soul of this country, because there's been an exquisite system designed where no one is really responsible for the spending or the efficacy or even the value that government action has in all of your lives. Because since the mid-90s, we have been governed by either omnibus spending bill or continuing resolution, which is just a fancy way to say one up or down vote on how the entire government runs. And they design it so that they back people up against shutdown politics and the fear that veterans might not get benefits or the military might not get paid. And then they use that centralized power to really feed an ecosystem and an economy of corruption. And here's how it works. If you can get the smallest group of people to be able to dictate the largest number of outcomes, then the special interests can go and buy those people off and put their priorities above what would be best for the American people. And it happens time and time again, and it is the reason we sit atop a $33 trillion debt. And what does that mean for families? Right now, the average American family is spending $700 more every month for the exact same goods and services that you got last year. And in 99% of American counties, the average income will not support home ownership. So this debt that government has built, supporting non-efficacious programs that don't even get reviewed, they just get reauthorized and increased and sent on down the road, what that's costing us is an ownership society, where we own our land and our homes and the choices that we make about our own health care and the choices we make about where our kids go to school. They want to take ownership away and make everyone more and more reliant on a system that is less and less valuable. And so while there's much work to do, and I'm sure we'll talk about that this evening, I know this. I disrupted at least $1 billion corrupt economy of political favors. And here's how. Kevin McCarthy has raised like $1 billion in special interest money. It is a remarkable feat. But the only way you really get to pay back the favors is through these bills that are thousands of pages and cover all these areas where there's no individual scrutiny. Because if you're the right lobbyist that's given the millions of dollars, the hundreds of thousands of dollars, well, then maybe you can count on the fact that your program will be saved, that there won't be anything that'll really get in the way of its continued life indefinitely. And now, on K Street, where all the lobbyists have their offices in Washington, D.C., people are holding $1 billion worth of IOUs that are worth about as much as Confederate money when Lee surrendered the sword at Appomattox Courthouse.
You'd love to hear it. So that's, man, it's been an amazing week. I mean, I come back and I'm just like, what a good day. What a good day to see the beast groaning in agony. But
Oh, to be honest, Tim kind of slapped the roof of the car and said, "Fuck yeah!"
that's true, I did. I was laughing. I was maniacally laughing. I was like the Joker in that car, like just with excitement, because it's history. And you know, beyond just what we're seeing with your fight in Congress, it feels to me, and I assume it feels to a lot of people, that for the longest time, we have tried to be active in our civic duties. We have tried to voice and express our opinions, but every single time, it turns out that the people who tell us they're going to bring us hope or change end up getting in, joining the machine, and then leaving us behind. And it's like we're not saying anything at all. And so part of, I think, what creates this ecosystem of independent podcasters, activists, speakers, and what ignited so many people behind Donald Trump was that finally we're starting to hear people who, as Michael Moore said rather accurately, represented a human Molotov cocktail into a system that we were sick and tired of. Now, of course, the system doesn't like it when we throw Molotov cocktails, figuratively I'm referring to. We're not Antifa here. They don't like it when we throw that through their windows, and so we end up seeing recoiling of the machine of the special interests. Matt, you posted a photo of yourself over Keanu Reeves' head with all the guns pointed at you. And to throw it to James O'Keefe as well, this guy's been sued, you know, more times than I have birthdays. They're coming after us. So I suppose my question, just to anybody who wants to jump in, is what's the bigger picture that we're up against right now? We all have these different individual fights, but what's the bigger picture, I guess?
I think it's like our nation, our consciousness has like a parasite. So I don't want to destroy it. We have to somehow extricate the parasite without harming the host. Maybe, I think hydrogen fuel's the way. You know, maybe graphene. People have heard about that.
He had to do it.
And I'm serious.
The first half of that statement was absolutely perfect. Like, this country has a parasite that must be removed without killing the host. And I'm like, yes.
Oh, maybe it's sound vibration that'll kill the parasite.
Okay.
Let's write a song, James.
We like the Constitution. We like the principles of this country. And there is an occupying force. There's a parasite within it. How do we get it out without destroying ourselves?
So I guess I got a question, if I may. Matt, I got a question for you. So for me, an outsider, more from a guy that's a businessman, entrepreneur, I've been in that world for the last 20-some years, last few years. Obviously, I have a lot of interest in politics because I see what's going on to the greatest nation in the world. I want to do my part to protect it for the 4 kids that I have. What kind of progress did we make with what happened with McCarthy? So, for example, when you first said, you got up and you said, this guy didn't keep the promises he told me he was going to keep. He didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't do this. The $33 trillion of debt, did you actually think your influence was going to be the first time for him to get fired? Did you think that was going to happen? Or were you like, oh shit, this actually happened. Oh my God, I didn't want it to be this bad. I just wanted to scare him, but no, it actually became a reality. What were you thinking when you first pushed it?
I've been a bit despondent my last few years in Congress because it feels like no matter how much we make the witnesses look like fools in hearings, they still get the money to turn large features of government against the American people. So I've come to believe that it's all about the money. It's about what you'll pay for and what you won't. And it's not about just kind of browbeating people into submission with really elaborate committee hearings. And in Washington, there's an ethic that you don't really have to keep your promises about the money because no one really means it. We've designed a system where the president can blame the Congress can blame the OMB director, the Senate and the House can blame each other, we can all blame the bureaucrats, and at the end of the day, everyone gets reelected, the debt grows, and it's just kind of a wink and a smile. And in January, we did organize a core group of people to say this has to be different. And then we went around the country. I went on your show and said, this is how it's going to be different. We're going to do a budget and then single subject spending bills that address one thing at a time, not every disparate agency of government at once. And we're going to have, like, the government spending increased 40% during COVID. So we want to go back to pre-COVID spending levels on like non-defense discretionary spending at a minimum to get the ball rolling and get momentum for other broader, deeper cuts. And when McCarthy sent us home for 6 weeks without a budget, when we knew we were going to be pushed up against a deadline with just yet another continuing resolution advancing Joe Biden's spending and Nancy Pelosi's priorities, I said, we can't do that anymore. We at least have to show that there's a consequence to breaking your promises about spending, even if only one time and even if only for one man. So I think that is an end unto itself. But now the job is not over. This is not the time to uncork the champagne and pat ourselves on the back. We have to get someone in that office who will deliver on those precise commitments. And then we have to demand that the Senate negotiate with us, not in the context of all these agencies smushed together, but each of them having to stand on their own merits. So I wouldn't say that the deliverable is more than the shock to the system that Tim described, but I do think that there is a way to govern that, frankly, I would hope would outlast Republican control of the House of Representatives. Like when the Democrats take over, which they inevitably will at some point in the waxing and waning of politics, why wouldn't you want a system where people have to take votes and be held accountable no matter who's in charge? That's how we ultimately win.
Last night, as I was going to bed, I walked to the window and I pulled up the blinds and I looked up to the sky at the first star, and I wished, as hard as a human can wish, that Donald Trump would be Speaker of the House.
Was it a shooting star?
It wasn't, so I don't know if it counts.
Doesn't count.
But
No, you were just a man with a hope.
with a hope, because it's you know Trump represents a lot of this energy of finally people who felt disenfranchised having someone fight for them. I've heard that so much. The first several Trump rallies I went to when he was running back in 2015 and 16, I met so many people who said, I'm not a Republican, I'm not political, I've never voted before. And a lot of what was being expressed to me by younger people who were voting for him was, it finally feels like someone's speaking to me. And it's funny because I remember that during Obama, all these young kids in Chicago were like, he's like me, he's hoping he's changed. Then he went and blew up a bunch of kids. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't know about all that. So when Trump came around the first time, I'm like, yeah, I've heard it all before, kid. And then come 2020, I'm like, I think I'm gonna vote for this guy. And now I know it's kind of silly to expect Trump to be Speaker of the House, but it's just, aside from it being very entertaining.
Getting the votes of people who voted to impeach him will be a difficult political
I know.
challenge.
I think
That's why I said I wished on a star. It's not like it's gonna happen.
What about Jim Jordan? He seems like the favorite.
Yeah, I would say, Jim's a solid guy. I think he would do a great job as Speaker. I don't think there would be a single Republican in America who would have McCarthy nostalgia if we had a Speaker Jim Jordan.
Do you think there's resistance to single subject spending bills? Obviously, because they slip things into the omnibus, there's resistance. They don't want to be found. But that it's going to take too long for 435 people to read those. It's just impossible, literally impossible.
But it's not, because in almost every state in the country, it happens. I've been in the Florida legislature. I am not looking at a mirage. Every year, we had a 9-week session. We figured out how much money the state was bringing in based on how many folks had visited or spent money here with our no income tax and our sales tax based economy. And then we would, just a little pitch for the Sunshine State. And then we would appropriate to the agencies pursuant to that top line budget amount. And that's how most states do it. But in Washington, because there's no balanced budget requirement, there's no reason to have any backstop to the spending. And there are real impacts of this when combined with what I believe is overuse of a sanctions regime, right? So look at what's happening globally right now. You have Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa building their system to pull the global economy away from the dollar. They've added 6 new countries in August, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Iran, even Argentina, a G20 economy here in the Western Hemisphere. You've got US News saying that in 2023, the #1 global economic trend is de-dollarization. And then the way that we choose to execute foreign policy is by telling people that they can't use the dollar. Meanwhile, we have to print 2.2 trillion more of them every single year to fund a government that a lot of people are questioning more and more with good reason, and that is not having to stand for any type of itemized specific review. This is the plan. This is the path we are on. And so when all these mainstream media folks say that I'm extreme and right-wing and hardline, they never want to deal with the facts that are irrefutable, and they will mean an entire generation of Americans will own nothing. As Bannon says, you'll be Russian serfs your whole life, unable to have the American experience that we deserve.
Well, I just want to add, people don't understand how much trouble we are going to be having very soon, especially here in the United States. We have a political system that benefits from fear and ignorance, and it perpetrates both. We're dealing with such a corrupt system that they can't find who left cocaine in the White House. They can't find who was on the Epstein client list. They can't find the surveillance footage of what hit the Pentagon. They can't do a placebo study on the vaccines. They can't do any of that. But if Lauren Boebert is in the crowd, you bet that there's probably a HD surveillance camera watching her right now. And if she is sitting here, let me know. I kind of want to move my chairs. But without that, how do we deal with this? Because the system is so corrupt that I believe it left Donald Trump ineffective in so many ways. How do we fix this problem without just voting once every 4 years? What's the solution here?
Yeah, maybe we could ask somebody with experience what it's like to have the people that you've hired turn against you.
Oh, yeah. I just want to add one quick thing.
Since we don't have Trump, I wonder if there's anyone else that might have that experience.
Luke, they can do those things. They're pretending they can't, and they're intentionally lying to us.
Of course.
I just have to say it, but James.
Well, Tim, yes, we have that in common. I'm on my way here to Miami late last night, and I'm going through the airport. I'm exhausted, and I get to the TSA story I told this morning to Tim, and the TSA agent looks at my ID, and he looks at me. And there's always that weird moment where I'm not sure. I'm sure, do they hate me or do they really like me? And he looks at my ID, he looks at me, and he goes, "They haven't killed you yet."
No.
And then,
Which way was he rooting?
and then always the whisper, "I'm a huge fan." And then I say, "Why are you whispering?" And Tim made the point this morning, which I thought was profound, is the response that I should have gave was, no, they're not coming after me. They're coming after you.
Yeah.
Because I have an audience. I have 2 million Twitter followers, and luckily supporters like you guys. And I have a platform. And Trump is in many ways, to borrow a business metaphor, he's almost like he's too big to fail. I mean, he's Horatius at the bridge. He is I saw Letitia James staring at him in the courtroom. I don't know if you remember that image of Letitia looking at him, the Attorney General of New York. I mean, he represents something, but it's the people that don't have the following. It's the anonymous people that they're going to come after. People have to wake up to that.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.